Bank teller denies service to a humble old woman, and what happened next stunned everyone. Just after 9 a.m. on the first Tuesday of the month, the heavy oak doors of Heritage Trust Bank in the small town of Oak Creek swung open. An old woman stepped inside. Her name was Eleanor Vance. At 78, she moved with the deliberate, unhurried pace of someone whose life was etched in farms and fields, not polished marble floors. She wore a simple, faded floral dress and a gray cardigan, frayed at the cuffs. Her shoes were the sensible, comfortable kind, worn smooth from years of use. In her hand, folded with care, was a piece of papyrus disbursement order from the Havenwood Foundation, a charity she had co-founded in her church basement 3 decades ago to support struggling families in the county. The cool, air-conditioned air was a stark contrast to the humid summer morning outside. Near the entrance, a small sign on an easel read, "Today, meeting with the Havenwood Foundation, 10 Honquak a.m. Key staff only." Most of the staff had seen the notice, but few knew the faces behind the name, especially not a young teller like Jessica. Eleanor paused, her eyes lingering on the sign. "I hope they get it right this time," she murmured, more to herself than anyone else. Only one teller window was open. Behind the glass sat a woman in her 20s with a sleek ponytail, sharp eyeliner, and a name tag that read Jessica. She was focused on her screen until she noticed Eleanor approaching. Jessica had been reprimanded last week for a costly error, and her gaze had sharpened with a new, aggressive caution. As her eyes swept over Eleanor's worn dress and simple shoes, one of her perfectly sculpted eyebrows lifted a fraction. "Oh, here we go," she muttered under her breath. The words were quiet, but in the hushed lobby, they hung in the air for a moment too long. Eleanor reached the counter and gently placed the paper on the cool marble. "Good morning. I'd like to process a withdrawal for the Havenwood Foundation, please." Jessica glanced at the paper, then back at Eleanor, her tone laced with skepticism. "Is this your account, ma'am?" Eleanor nodded, her voice steady. "Yes. I was told the funds would be ready for withdrawal today." Jessica picked up the paper between 2 manicured fingers. After last week's incident, she was taking no chances. Her fingers tapped loudly against the keyboard as she navigated the bank's system. "There's a discrepancy," she announced, her eyes glued to the screen. "Your name isn't listed as an authorized signatory for this foundation." Eleanor's hand rested on the edge of the counter. "That's the disbursement notice," she said quietly. "From the Havenwood Foundation." "Well, I don't see your name anywhere," Jessica retorted, her patience wearing thin. "We only process transactions when every field aligns." Eleanor leaned forward slightly. "It's under an internal designation. Please check disbursement batch 7. A dry, dismissive laugh escaped Jessica's lips. "That's not how this works, ma'am." She leaned back in her chair, her posture radiating superiority. "I've done this many times before." Eleanor insisted gently. Please, just check again. I'll have to call my manager, Jessica said. Her voice clipped and cold as she pressed a button under her desk. A few moments later, a man in a perfectly tailored navy suit emerged from a back office. He was Mr. Peterson, the branch manager, a man who valued procedure above all else. What's the issue, Jessica? A disbursement form for the Havenwood Foundation, she explained. The customer's name isn't in the system, but she's insisting we manually check batch 7. Mr. Peterson took the paper, his eyes scanning it quickly before turning to Jessica's screen. After the recent security scare, he was in no mood for exceptions. A system error was possible, but a scam attempt felt more likely. Finally, his gaze fell on Eleanor. It wasn't a glance. It was a full, dismissive assessment of her worn cardigan and humble appearance. In his mind, every red flag was waving. Ma'am, the system is our source of truth, he said, his voice firm and final. If your name isn't in it, we can't proceed. Eleanor stood her ground. I'm not here to argue. I'm here to collect what was entrusted to us. The document came from my office, she added, her voice unwavering. I helped sign the very first check that foundation ever wrote. A quiet scoff slipped from Jessica. Bolstered by her manager's presence, she added, We can't just take anyone's word for it. For all we know, this could be forged. The word forged shattered the quiet dignity of the room. Eleanor's hand tightened on her handbag. I will not leave without that disbursement slip, she said, or a written explanation for its refusal. There's no need to make this difficult, Mr. Peterson said, his tone turning to ice. Either you leave the document with us, or you leave the premises. I'm not going anywhere. Eleanor's voice rose, cracking with indignation. Mr. Peterson's patience snapped. Security, he barked. This woman is being disruptive. Please escort her out. The security guard started toward them. In a flash, Peterson reached across the counter, intending to snatch the paper away. But Eleanor was faster. Her hand slapped down on the document, pinning it to the counter. Don't you dare, she growled, her voice rough with a sudden surge of anger. She yanked the paper back, clutching it to her chest. Peterson seized the moment, pointing at her dramatically. She's refusing to comply, and now she's being aggressive, he shouted, feigning alarm. Get her out of here now. A wave of murmurs swept through the lobby. Stunned by the blatant lie, Eleanor stood frozen as the guard approached. At that exact moment, the bank's heavy oak doors swung open again. A tall, distinguished man with silver hair and an expensive suit stepped inside. His confident stride faltered as he took in the scene. Eleanor, he called out, his voice filled with concern. Eleanor Vance? She turned, a flicker of relief on her tired face. Mr. Davies. He reached her side in a few long strides, his eyes falling on the crumpled paper in her hands, the security guard, and the rigid figures of Peterson and Jessica behind the counter. He needed no explanation. What is going on here? His voice wasn't loud, but it cut through the tension like a knife. Why does it look like Mrs. Vance is being escorted out? No one answered. They said my name wasn't in the system, Eleanor said with a weary smile. Mr. Davies turned slowly, positioning himself between her and the counter. He looked directly at Peterson. "This," he said, his voice ringing with authority, "is Eleanor Vance. She is the co-founder of the Havenwood Foundation. The very reason I and the rest of the board are here today." A stone had been dropped into a silent pond. Someone in line whispered, "Co-founder?" The entire room shifted. Eyes widened. Jessica's face went white, the pen trembling in her hand. "You may want to recheck that document," Mr. Davies continued, his voice cold as steel, "because the woman you just dismissed built the very program this bank is so proud to partner with." Peterson's mouth opened and closed. "With all due respect, sir," he stammered, "our protocol. I was just following policy. I will be reporting your conduct, your assumptions, and your unacceptable escalation of this matter to the regional board," Mr. Davies said flatly. "I trust they will handle the rest." Peterson turned pale. Eleanor didn't gloat. She simply met his eyes with the quiet strength of someone who had seen it all. "I just want the funds to reach the people who need them," she said. She then looked at Mr. Davies and smoothed the crumpled paper. "I didn't want them to recognize me," she confessed. "I wanted to see how they would treat someone like me." "Well," Mr. Davies said grimly, "now we know." In the weeks that followed, the change at Heritage Trust Bank was palpable. Mr. Peterson was reassigned to a back-office compliance desk with no customer interaction. Jessica was not fired. Instead, at Eleanor's specific request, she was required to attend empathy training and volunteer every Saturday at the Havenwood Foundation's soup kitchen. The first Saturday, she arrived looking uncomfortable. By noon, her hair was a mess, and her blouse was stained with soup, but she stayed late to mop the floors. Eleanor didn't say a word of reproach. She simply handed her an apron and quietly asked, "Are you hungry?" Jessica nodded, and they ate chili together in silence on plastic chairs. No apologies were spoken, but an understanding was born. Back at the bank, a new poster hung in the lobby, featuring a smiling photo of Eleanor Vance and Mr. Davies, announcing the Havenwood Community Partnership. On Jessica's desk sat a small framed sticky note that read, "People before process." Eleanor never needed to return to that bank. Her legacy was no longer on a piece of paper. It was in the warm meals served every weekend, and in the quiet dignity that had been restored, not just for her, but for every customer who walked through those doors. One afternoon, a little boy pointed at the poster. "Mommy, is that the nice lady from the picture?" His mother smiled. "Yes, honey, that's her." From her station, Jessica watched them. She didn't speak, but her hands, once poised to judge, now moved with a quiet, steady purpose just like Eleanor's.